It was a busy morning in the city, and the luxury bank looked like a place where success had come to rest. Expensive cars stopped outside every few minutes, and well-dressed people in suits walked in with confident steps, speaking loudly about business, deals, and investments. Inside, the huge marble floor shined under the bright lights, and the air smelled of expensive perfume and freshly printed documents. A long line of rich customers stood waiting at the counters, some impatiently tapping their shoes, others talking loudly on their phones about how they were moving millions from one place to another. The security guards stood tall by the entrance, watching everyone who came in, while the bank staff typed quickly on their computers, handling people with money and power. Everything looked normal, everything looked perfect, until something unusual happened. The glass doors opened, and a young girl, around 12 years old, walked in alone. She wore simple clothes, the kind that children from regular families wore to school, and she carried an old school bag with frayed stitching near one corner. She walked quietly, without fear, without hesitation, and yet the moment she entered, several heads turned. People stopped talking. The guard blinked in surprise. A couple standing in line raised their eyebrows and whispered to each other. One banker looked at another and whispered, "Is she lost?" Another softly asked, "Where are her parents?" In a place where every customer seemed to wear a suit, jewelry, or expensive watches, the girl looked completely out of place. She did not look confused, though. She did not look shy or scared. Instead, she looked like she had a purpose, a destination, and she knew exactly where she was going. The girl did not join the regular line. Instead, she kept walking toward the VIP counter, the section where only the richest and most powerful customers went, the section most people in the bank would never be allowed to step near. Some people gasped as she walked past them. One woman whispered, "What is she doing?" "That place is for millionaires." Even the staff did not move at first, too stunned to react. At the VIP counter sat Mr. Harrington, one of the richest business tycoons in the city. His suits alone cost more than a normal person's yearly salary, and he had a habit of speaking loudly so everyone around could hear how important he was. He sat in a large leather chair, leaned back comfortably, and typing casually on his premium laptop, acting as if the world revolved around him. When he saw the young girl approaching, he paused and looked her up and down with confusion at first, and then with amusement. A slow, arrogant smile spread across his face. The expressions of several other customers also changed. Some stared in surprise, others in judgment. It was clear that most of them were thinking the same thing: she did not belong here. But the young girl did not notice the silent opinions around her. She walked straight to the counter, stood in front of Mr. Harrington, and waited quietly with a calm and innocent expression. Mr. Harrington raised one eyebrow, looked at her as if she was a joke, and asked, loud enough for others to hear, "Little girl, are you lost?" His voice carried a mix of sarcasm and amusement, the kind of tone adults sometimes use when they think a child has done something silly. Several customers smirked. A few even chuckled under their breath. But the girl did not react. She simply stood there, her school bag hanging from one shoulder, her face calm and serious. Her silence made Mr. Harrington's smirk grow stronger. "This counter," he continued, while gesturing grandly with his hand, "is for people with serious business. Important business. Not for children." The bank workers turned their heads, unsure whether to laugh or step in. Nobody knew why the girl was here, and nobody expected what would happen next. All they saw was a simple young girl in a world of wealth and power, and they believed she would realize her mistake and run back to where she came from. But instead of leaving, she spoke in a soft but confident voice, loud enough for people nearby to hear. "I just want to check my balance." Her words surprised the staff. She did not sound confused or nervous. She sounded like she genuinely believed she had every right to be there. Mr. Harrington blinked, taken aback for a second, and then let out a short laugh. The customers behind her smiled at each other, assuming she was pretending or playing some childish dream game. The atmosphere inside the bank changed, from serious business to a strange curiosity. People started paying attention. The woman in line put down her phone. A man behind her leaned forward to get a better view. Even the security guard took a step closer, wondering if he needed to politely guide the girl away. But nobody moved. Everyone waited to see what would happen. The whispers grew louder. "Who is she?" asked one man. "Why is she here?" asked another. "Maybe she has a few dollars and wants to feel rich," someone said, and several people laughed. Mr. Harrington folded his arms and leaned forward as if he were watching a funny performance. He looked down at the girl like a king observing a subject who had stepped into the palace by mistake. The girl did not care. Her eyes stayed steady, calm, and determined, as if she had faced judgment before and learned how to ignore it. She did not know that by simply walking in and asking for her account balance, she had shaken the entire bank and created a moment none of them would forget. And as she stood there, small but fearless, not a single person in the building had even the smallest idea of the truth that the number on that account would soon wipe away every smile, shock every watcher, and prove that appearances can be the biggest lie of all. Mr. Harrington stared at the young girl for a long moment, still believing she was joking or unaware of where she was standing. He tapped one finger on the desk, letting the silence stretch, as if giving her a chance to realize her mistake. But the girl did not move. Her eyes stayed calm, her face serious, and she simply waited, as if she had made a reasonable request and expected normal service. The customers nearby watched closely, not wanting to miss what would happen next. Finally, Mr. Harrington leaned back in his chair, put on a dramatic expression, and spoke loudly enough so everyone behind the girl could hear. "You want to check your balance here?" he asked, with a smile that was more insulting than friendly. "This counter is not for children with piggy banks. This counter is for clients who make real transactions." A couple of customers quietly laughed, while one man shook his head as if the situation was ridiculous. But the girl did not get embarrassed. She did not blush, she did not step back, and she did not look uncertain. She simply repeated her request in a clear and polite voice. "I want to check my balance." Her calm tone bothered Mr. Harrington more than anger ever could. It was as if she had no fear of him, no respect for his wealth, no concern for the attention she was attracting. He leaned forward and said in a lower voice, "Look, little girl, people who stand here usually have large numbers in their accounts. Big numbers. Do you understand?" She simply nodded. Yes. Her short answer only annoyed him further. He straightened his suit, gave a short laugh, and looked up at the other customers as if he wanted applause for dealing with such foolishness. "Fine," he said dramatically. "We will play along." At that moment, a young bank employee approached, unsure of what to do. She looked nervously at the girl, then at Mr. Harrington, and began speaking carefully. "Sir, maybe she should go to the normal counter. This section is for..." But before she could finish, the girl interrupted softly. "I was told to use this counter." The bank employee blinked, surprised. "By who?" she asked. The girl answered honestly, "My guardian." People around her reacted immediately. Someone in line whispered, "Her guardian must be confused." Another person chuckled. Maybe they told her wrong. But the girl's voice did not shake. She stood there like she had every right to be exactly where she was. Mr. Harrington rolled his eyes and asked in a mocking voice, "And who is this guardian of yours?" "Someone who thinks a schoolgirl belongs in the VIP section." She simply replied, "He told me this is where I should go." Her calmness only made him more amused. Normally, people got nervous in front of him. Some even tried hard to impress him. Yet this child was speaking as though she was addressing a regular person, not a man who owned buildings, companies, and stocks. The bank employee stepped forward again and spoke gently. "Maybe you should let me show you the right place?" She clearly wanted to avoid making a scene, but the girl shook her head. "He told me to come here today." Her words were spoken with such assurance that the employee stopped mid-sentence. For the first time, Mr. Harrington actually looked at the girl with a little more interest. Not respect yet, but curiosity. Something about her seriousness felt different. She did not look like a child who had wandered in by mistake. She looked like someone who knew something others did not. The customers continued whispering behind her. Some were entertained, some irritated, and a few oddly intrigued, but nobody dared to walk away. Even those who were late for meetings wanted to see how this unusual scene would unfold. Finally, Mr. Harrington let out a sigh, as if he was growing tired of the game. "All right," he announced loudly. "Show us what you have." His tone made it sound like a dare, a challenge, a chance to prove she did not belong. He leaned forward, still smirking, expecting her to hand him a torn notebook, a few pennies, or maybe some pretend documents from school. Instead, to everyone's shock, the girl slowly opened her old school bag and took out neatly kept documents. She placed them carefully on the counter. A bank passbook, an identification document, a sealed legal letter stamped officially. Everything looked professional, official, and real. The employee stared at the papers, eyes widening. She picked up the legal letter first, her hands slightly trembling as she skimmed through the contents, and her expression changed in a single heartbeat. Mr. Harrington noticed the shift and frowned. "What is it?" he asked, annoyed. The employee swallowed hard and hesitated, as if unsure how to speak. "Everything appears valid, sir," she stuttered. Several customers leaned forward, shocked that the papers were real. One customer whispered, "Wait, what's happening here?" Another muttered, "Where did this kid get legal documents?" But Mr. Harrington still believed the situation was ridiculous. He took the documents from the employee's hand and gave them a quick glance, ready to find something to laugh at. His eyes locked on the signature at the bottom of the letter. For a second, he froze. The signature belonged to a businessman whose name carried real weight in the financial world. A man Mr. Harrington himself had once wanted to partner with, but never had the chance. He swallowed and looked at the girl again, but before he could speak, she gently placed her bank passbook in front of him and said, "Can you check my balance now?" The room grew silent again. The playful mood disappeared. People were no longer laughing. They suddenly wanted to know who this girl really was. Why did she have documents from such an important person? What exactly was in that account? Even Mr. Harrington, who had been mocking her moments earlier, now felt a strange tension in his chest, like something unexpected was about to happen. His smirk weakened. The arrogant look faded. And for the first time since she entered the bank, he realized he had no idea what he was dealing with. The bank grew quieter as Mr. Harrington slowly placed the girl's documents on the desk, trying not to show the slight uneasiness growing inside him. He looked calm on the outside, but his thoughts were no longer as relaxed as before. The other customers watched with increasing curiosity, realizing the situation no longer funny entertainment, but something unusual and mysterious. The girl stood silently, her face calm, as though she had seen such reactions before. She did not fidget or look around. She simply waited, confident that everything would move the way it was meant to. While Mr. Harrington examined the papers once again, a senior banker walked over after noticing the unusual disturbance at the VIP counter. He was a man in his late 50s, with half-rimmed glasses and a personality shaped by years of dealing with wealthy clients. He looked at the girl, then Mr. Harrington, and asked politely, "Is there a problem here?" Mr. Harrington cleared his throat and tried to regain his superiority. "This young girl insists on checking her balance at the VIP counter," he said, keeping his voice controlled but still laced with arrogance. The senior banker looked slightly confused. He turned toward the girl and asked gently, "Young lady, may I know who instructed you to come to this desk?" She gave the same steady answer, "My guardian." The senior banker nodded, expecting that answer. But when Mr. Harrington handed him the legal letter, the banker began reading it. Slowly, his expression changed, just like the younger employees had a few minutes earlier. He blinked 3 times, then read the signature again, as if making sure his eyes were not tricking him. Then he looked at the girl in a completely different way, almost with respect. Mr. Harrington noticed and narrowed his eyes. "Surely you do not believe this is serious," he muttered. But the banker did not laugh. Instead, he straightened himself and said quietly, "Sir, I think we should run the account check." The seriousness in his voice made several customers stand taller and watch even more carefully. The young girl did not smile, did not brag, and did not act proud. She simply nodded, happy that someone was finally taking her request properly. Mr. Harrington no longer wanted to play the fool in front of the entire floor, so he sat down, lifted the bank passbook, and brought the computer keyboard closer. "Fine," he said sharply. "Let's get this over with." He typed in the account number printed inside the booklet. The bank system began processing slowly, showing a loading icon that spun in circles. The girl stood quietly. The senior banker stood behind the counter, trying not to show the anticipation on his face. Customers leaned forward slightly, holding their breath, waiting to see if the balance would be something surprising or something ordinary. The loading bar crawled, taking longer than usual, and the delay only increased the suspense. Mr. Harrington tapped the desk with one finger, impatient but also slightly nervous, though he hit it well. One man behind the girl whispered, "Maybe the system is slow because the account is empty." Another whispered, "Or maybe it is too full." A woman rolled her eyes and said, "Be serious. Kids don't have big money." Meanwhile, a second employee approached and said confusedly, "Sir, if the legal letter is real, then shouldn't we follow the special protocol?" Mr. Harrington waved him off. "This won't take long." The screen flickered once, then again, and then the numbers appeared. Mr. Harrington's face slowly lost color. His eyebrows rose. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The senior banker leaned in to see and inhaled sharply through his nose, shocked. From where the customers were standing, nobody could see the numbers, but they could clearly see the change in the 2 men's expressions. They were no longer annoyed, amused, or arrogant. They were stunned, completely stunned. The girl watched quietly, as though she expected nothing less. The murmurs behind her grew louder. Someone asked, "What is it?" Another said, "Is something wrong?" The senior banker stepped back, still staring at the screen. This cannot be," he whispered, barely believing what he saw. Mr. Harrington swallowed and wiped his forehead. He finally forced himself to speak, but his voice did not carry the same confidence. You are the account holder?" The girl nodded politely. "Yes." He leaned closer, staring at the screen as if the numbers would disappear if he blinked. The account balance was not small. It was massive. So massive that even Mr. Harrington, a man who dealt with wealth every day, had never expected to see such a number connected to a young schoolgirl. Suddenly, everything the girl had said earlier began making sense. Her guardian, the legal letter, the VIP instructions, none of it seemed impossible anymore. Now the question was not why she was there. The real question was how a 12-year-old had access to something so huge. The senior banker cleared his throat and spoke in a respectful tone, very different from the earlier attitude. "Miss, would you like assistance with any transactions today?" The entire bank gasped silently. Mr. Harrington felt heat crawl up his neck. Only minutes earlier, he had mocked her openly in front of everyone. Now he realized he might have insulted one of the most important and powerful customers the bank had ever handled. He looked at the girl again, this time not with arrogance, but with caution and confusion. The staff members around the counter exchanged shocked looks, unsure whether to apologize or remain silent. The customers behind her were speechless. Nobody had even imagined such a twist. The security guard slowly took a step back, standing straighter, as if the girl had suddenly become someone of high status. The little girl stood quietly, still holding her school bag, still looking simple, ordinary, humble, and yet she now looked like the most powerful person in the room. All she had wanted was to check her balance, but in doing so, she had turned the entire bank upside down. And none of them yet knew the full story. Heavy silence settled over the luxury bank as the reality of the situation sank deeper into everyone present. But the young girl remained calm, as if she had been through moments like this before. She slowly pulled her school bag closer, and without rushing, she opened it and brought out the legal documents in proper order, placing them gently on the counter in front of Mr. Harrington. She moved with quiet confidence, the kind that made people start to wonder who she really was, because no ordinary child carried official documents with such discipline. The employees nearby leaned forward, pretending to work but secretly trying to see every detail, every line, every signature. The senior banker cleared his throat again and motioned toward the documents. "Sir, we should review everything properly," he said, forcing composure into his voice, though anyone paying attention could see the nervous respect behind his eyes. Mr. Harrington's pride was torn apart, yet he still tried to maintain some control. He opened the envelope containing the legal letter, unfolding the crisp paper slowly, as though giving himself time to regain confidence. The sound of the unfolding document filled the air and drew even more attention from curious customers. The letter was clear, professional, and written by someone whose name carried weight in the financial world. The handwriting belonged to a well-known businessman who had recently passed away, a man respected for his success and rumored for his mysterious personal life. The letter clearly stated that the young girl before them was now the legal and primary beneficiary of his wealth. It was shocking enough, but what made the situation even more unbelievable was the careful detail in the document bank seals, verification codes, lawyer signatures, and notification instructions. Everything was valid. The paper was not fake. The details were not small. Nobody could deny what they were seeing. The senior banker took a deep breath and placed the letter down, fully understanding the seriousness of the moment. Mr. Harrington looked as though he had swallowed something sharp. His mind replayed everything he had said earlier, the mocking, the careless tone, the humiliation. Now he felt embarrassed in front of everyone. But the girl did not seem affected or interested in his discomfort. She simply stood, waiting respectfully for the process to continue. The senior banker gently addressed her. "Young lady, do you have anything else to present?" Without comment, she opened another small folder and took out her identification documents, birth certificate, guardian appointment papers, financial clearance forms, and even a copy of the will summary. The details matched perfectly with what was already on the bank system, confirming her identity beyond any doubt. Gasps rippled softly through the surrounding crowd. Many customers who once chuckled now stood stiff and awkward, realizing they had judged her too quickly. One woman muttered under her breath, "Who knew? She really is someone important." A man next to her shook his head and whispered, "I have never seen a bank react like this." Some customers shifted uncomfortably, guilty for laughing earlier. Meanwhile, the bank employee who had first tried to redirect the girl looked down, ashamed that she had assumed the child was out of place. The security guard, who earlier thought he might have to escort her out, now stepped back respectfully, standing straighter than before. This was no ordinary situation. Not every day did a 12-year-old walk into a bank with wealth that surpassed the people who thought they were powerful. Mr. Harrington ran a hand through his hair, his voice unsteady for the first time. "Let's verify everything in sequence," he said, trying to sound formal. He typed the account credentials again, confirming the extreme balance once more. It was still there. Not a temporary deposit, not a mistaken entry, but real money under her ownership. A number that could buy buildings, entire companies, or even change the life of everyone present. The senior banker leaned forward and whispered quietly, "Sir, with your permission, we must follow the special protocol for high-value inheritance accounts." Mr. Harrington nodded stiffly. The girl watched them, not with pride, but with the calmness of someone who had prepared for this day. She understood the reactions, and it did not surprise her. After all, her guardian had warned her that the world judged too quickly based on appearance. And today, she had seen the truth of that statement. The senior banker finally addressed her with the same politeness reserved for VIP clients. "Miss, may I ask, did your guardian explain how the process would work today?" She nodded. "He told me the bank would know what to do." The senior banker shared a look with Mr. Harrington, both realizing that the bank had, in fact, received an internal notice about the inheritance weeks earlier. But nobody had imagined the heir would be a child. Now it suddenly made perfect sense. As the documents lay on the counter, the girl reached into her bag again and presented one final envelope, smaller and older, with a handwritten note on the front. "They told me to give this to you," she said softly, looking at Mr. Harrington. For the first time in his career, Mr. Harrington hesitated before taking the letter. He opened it slowly. The handwriting inside was neat and confident, belonging to the deceased businessman. It read, "If she comes to your counter, treat her with the respect you wish others would treat your own child with. She may be young, but she is more prepared for the world than most adults." The letter ended with a signature that made Mr. Harrington's stomach twist. He slowly folded the note and looked at the girl, not with arrogance, not with superiority, but with the uncomfortable realization that he had failed the very test the guardian had predicted. Around them, customers were silent, watching the scene unfold. Nobody knew what would happen next, but they all sensed that something bigger was coming. Something that would not just reveal the girl's wealth, but also uncover the deeper truth behind how she had come into such extraordinary fortune. Mr. Harrington sat stiffly in the soft leather chair of the empty meeting room. For the first time that morning, his confident look was gone. His hands were slightly shaking. The documents in front of him showed numbers and signatures he recognized all too well. He stared at them as if they were ghosts from the past. The little girl, Amelia, stood in front of him silently. She did not look afraid. She did not look angry. She just looked determined, like someone who had waited a long time for this moment. He cleared his throat. "Who gave you these?" His voice came out low and careful. "That does not matter," Amelia replied simply. "What matters is that the bank must correct the mistake. My mother never got the money she was promised. We lived many years without knowing the truth." Mr. Harrington leaned back slowly. He remembered every detail, even though he wished he did not. Many years ago, Amelia's late mother had worked as a junior accountant at his company. She was smart and hardworking. She had discovered something strange in the accounts and had come to him for answers. He had promised her a bonus, a settlement, and her silence. She had signed a paper, and the amount had been approved. But someone else in the company had stopped the transfer and kept the money. The matter had disappeared from his mind after that, but clearly it had not disappeared from hers. "You should understand something," Harrington said, rubbing his forehead. Even if this is true, it is almost impossible to reverse an old financial case. Too much time has passed. Amelia shook her head. No, you can do it. You are the most powerful man in this bank. Everyone listens to you. Her confidence shook him more than the documents did. How could a child talk like that? How much had she seen? How much had she learned? He looked at her again, this time not as a curious little girl in a school uniform, but as someone standing alone against giants without shaking. Just outside the room, the employees stood nervously near the door. They did not dare speak, but the whole bank seemed to feel that something big was happening. They had never seen their powerful boss shut himself in with a child for so long. News was already spreading through whispers, rumors of hidden accounts, frozen transactions, secret records. Some believed the girl was the heiress of a wealthy empire. Others believed she had something dangerous in her bag that could destroy someone's career. Inside the room, the door clicked shut as Mr. Harrington stood up. He walked slowly toward the window, watching the busy world outside. Cars moved, office workers hurried, and life went on. All this time, he had believed success was about not looking back. But today, a little girl had forced him to do exactly that. When your mother came to me, he finally said, she asked for justice, not money. She wanted the wrong fixed without hurting anyone. She thought silence would protect her. Amelia nodded. That is how she was. She never wanted trouble. But silence did not protect her, Harrington said quietly. I failed her. There was a long silence. Amelia's voice softened for the first time. You can still fix it. Mr. Harrington closed his eyes. He knew what she wanted. He also knew how dangerous it was. Correcting the old transaction meant exposing many things' names, dates, illegal transfers, and decisions made behind closed doors. If those became public, major people could fall. Stocks could drop. The company's reputation could suffer. And yet, he could not ignore the child's words. She looked so much like her mother. The same determined eyes. The same quiet strength. Finally, he turned and walked back to the table. If I decide to open this case again, there will be questions. The press may get involved. Many people might try to stop us. Are you ready for that? Amelia answered without hesitation. I am not afraid. Her answer surprised him. Fear was natural in situations like this. But she was not shaking. She was steady, just like someone who had lived the hard way and had already faced the worst. Mr. Harrington reached for his phone. I will need to call some board members and pull the old financial logs. This will take time, maybe days. No, Amelia said calmly. You can start today. The files are still here. We checked. Harrington's eyes narrowed. Amelia hesitated for the smallest moment. It was the first sign she was keeping something hidden. I did not come alone. Now the pieces began to shift in Harrington's mind. Someone had helped her dig up the data. Someone intelligent. Someone with insider knowledge. Maybe a current employee. Maybe someone close to him. The idea made his stomach twist. Before he could ask further, there was a sudden knock at the door. The assistant stepped in nervously. Sir, the press is outside the bank. Both Amelia and Harrington froze. What press? Harrington asked sharply. Television crews, reporters, they say. They were informed that someone is reopening old financial fraud files. They want a statement. Harrington stared at Amelia. She did not look surprised. She only opened her old school bag and took out a simple lunchbox. The kind every normal school student carried. I told you, she said quietly. I did not come alone. Outside, camera flashes were already going off. The bank was becoming the center of a storm. People in the lobby whispered and rushed to windows, trying to see what was happening outside. Inside, Mr. Harrington leaned forward and spoke in a low, firm voice. "Amelia, you need to tell me everything now." She took a slow breath. Something deep, powerful, and long hidden was about to come out. And once said, nothing in the bank nor the city would ever be the same again. Amelia took a slow step forward, keeping her calm, steady gaze on Mr. Harrington. The room felt smaller somehow, the air thicker, as if everyone present could sense that the truth was about to come out. She reached into her school bag and carefully pulled out a thick folder filled with documents, each page neatly organized, marked, and annotated. "My guardian wanted me to bring everything here," she said softly, "so no one could cheat us again." Mr. Harrington felt his heart skip a beat. He recognized some of the papers immediately: old contracts, financial statements, proof of block transfers, and letters that had been hidden in the company archives for years. Every piece of evidence was authentic, official, and undeniable. The senior banker, standing quietly behind the counter, shifted uncomfortably, realizing this was no ordinary case. He had handled inheritance accounts and legal disputes before, but nothing like this. Amelia opened the folder further and pointed to one page. "This proves everything," she said. "All the accounts, all the transactions, all the decisions that were hidden. My mother trusted someone, and now I have the proof." Mr. Harrington swallowed hard, his pride wounded, his mind racing. For years, he had believed he had been untouchable, controlling business after business with careful precision. But here was a 12-year-old showing him that he had underestimated the world in a way he could not ignore. His voice was low when he asked, "Why did your guardian wait so long? Why now?" Amelia's expression softened slightly, almost like she had expected the question. "He waited because he knew the timing had to be right. The documents needed to be ready. The bank needed to be fully aware. Everything had to be perfect so no one could stop justice." Mr. Harrington ran a hand through his hair. "Do you understand what this means?" he asked, though he already knew. If these documents were made public, or if the account balances were revealed, it could shake the financial world. It could ruin reputations, expose lies, and perhaps even dismantle some of the oldest business alliances. And yet, here was this young girl, fearless, standing in front of him, prepared to face the storm. "I do," Amelia said quietly. "I am ready. I will not hide. I will not be afraid. My mother's work, her life, and her honesty deserve respect, not lies." The senior banker nodded slowly. "It is rare to see someone so young with such clarity," he whispered under his breath, almost to himself. Amelia carefully handed him another set of papers: bank statements, spreadsheets, and digital logs. "Everything is here," she said. "You can check. Every transaction is recorded. Every mistake, every attempt to hide the money, every alteration is listed clearly. There is no way to argue with this." Mr. Harrington leaned forward and scanned the papers quickly, recognizing several names from his own company. The balance numbers were staggering. It was not just the money itself, it was the evidence, precise and undeniable. The girl had organized everything perfectly. He felt a strange mixture of fear, respect, and guilt. He had mocked her earlier in the bank, laughed at her calm demeanor, and assumed she was nothing more than a child. Now he realized he had underestimated her intelligence, preparation, and courage. "Who helped you?" he asked finally, his voice trembling slightly. "No one," she said quietly. "I did this. My guardian guided me, but I did the research. I found the evidence. I knew what to do." Her answer stunned him further. She had navigated the bank systems, the legal documents, and the financial records all on her own. Yet she had maintained the innocence and calm of a child. Mr. Harrington leaned back and closed his eyes briefly. "You are extraordinary," he muttered. "I cannot believe this." The senior banker glanced at him nervously, unsure whether to speak. Outside the room, people whispered in the lobby. They could feel tension growing, the strange weight of a truth about to be revealed. Reporters and onlookers pressed against the glass walls, cameras ready, sensing that the story unfolding inside was bigger than anyone had imagined. Amelia stood perfectly still, holding the folder in her hands, quiet but unshakable. "Now," she said finally, her voice calm but commanding, "you know the truth. What will you do?" Mr. Harrington opened his eyes slowly, and for the first time in decades, he did not have an answer that could satisfy him or anyone else. The bank was no longer a place of power for him today. It was a place where a child had shown him how little he truly controlled. We will correct this," he said at last. "I will see to it personally. Every account, every transaction, everything will be fixed." Amelia nodded. "Good. That is all I ask. My mother believed in justice, and I will honor her memory." A silence fell over the room, heavy and meaningful. Mr. Harrington looked at her, no longer with arrogance, but with a cautious respect, a recognition of her courage and intelligence. He understood that the world had changed in that moment. A child had reminded him that power and wealth were meaningless without integrity and honesty. Outside, the murmurs of the crowd grew louder. The story of the young girl with the evidence of hidden wealth was spreading. Cameras were flashing. Phones were recording. People were sharing every word. And inside, Amelia simply stood, quiet and confident, knowing that justice, at last, was beginning. She had come to check her balance. Yes, but in doing so, she had revealed a hidden truth, shaken the foundation of powerful people, and ensured that her mother's name would never be forgotten. Mr. Harrington sat silently, processing everything, realizing that this small girl had done what he and his entire company had failed to accomplish for years. He had laughed at her earlier, mocked her, and underestimated her. Now he understood that appearances could deceive, and courage and preparation could come from the smallest, most unexpected places. Amelia's calm presence filled the room with a quiet authority, leaving everyone, including the richest man in the building, astonished, respectful, and a little afraid of the power of truth. The bank had transformed completely since Amelia walked in that morning. What had started as a quiet, busy day with wealthy customers and polite employees had turned into a moment that no one present would ever forget. Mr. Harrington, once smug and confident, now sat in his chair with a look of deep respect and disbelief. He had followed every instruction, verified every document, and seen the account balance and evidence with his own eyes. Every number, every signature, every hidden detail confirmed the truth. Amelia's calm confidence had forced him and the entire bank to confront a reality they had never expected. This young girl, barely 12, had not only come to check her balance, but had uncovered a story of long-hidden injustice, a legacy of honesty and courage left behind by her late mother. The employees who had watched the events unfold felt a mix of awe and embarrassment. They had underestimated her, judged her by her size, her age, and her simple clothes. But she had quietly proven them all wrong, showing that courage and intelligence were not measured by appearance. The senior banker approached Amelia with a gentle smile, finally able to address her with the respect she deserved. "Miss," he said, "you have handled this with a level of maturity and precision I have rarely seen, even in adults." Amelia nodded politely, but did not boast. She had no need to. The documents on the counter, the verified account balances, and the legal proof did all the talking. Mr. Harrington, still processing the events, stood slowly and walked toward her. "I must apologize," he said, his voice unusually soft for someone of his stature. "I mocked you. I underestimated you. I treated you like a child who did not belong here. But now I see that you were right. Everything you did, every step you took, was done with purpose and strength. Amelia smiled faintly, the kind of smile that could calm a storm without words. "Thank you," she said quietly. "That is all I wanted. Justice for my mother, nothing more." Mr. Harrington nodded and gestured to the employees around. "From now on," he said, "this account, this inheritance, and everything related to it will be handled with care. No one will question it. And all of you," he added, looking at the staff, "learned an important lesson today: never judge by appearances." Outside, the crowd that had gathered to watch through the bank windows and press cameras had started murmuring excitedly. Reporters whispered among themselves, recognizing the story of the little girl who had stunned a powerful tycoon. Phones were recording, live streams were being shared, and the news would spread quickly. Amelia's quiet bravery had become the center of attention, and everyone watching could sense the significance of her actions. Yet, she remained calm, holding her bag, ready to leave once her purpose was complete. Mr. Harrington stepped forward again. "If you ever need anything," he said, "I'm at your service. Consider me an ally, not an obstacle." Amelia nodded politely. She had expected no special treatment, no riches beyond what had been inherited, but she recognized the offer as a sign that even the most powerful could acknowledge the truth and honor it. The senior banker helped her organize the documents to ensure nothing was misplaced, and the employees quietly whispered among themselves about how remarkable she was. The bank, which had seemed like a place of cold power and wealth, had become a classroom for humility, courage, and justice. As she walked toward the exit, Mr. Harrington paused and watched her. For the first time in years, he realized that wealth alone did not make a person great. Integrity, preparation, and courage did. Amelia stepped out of the VIP section, past the curious eyes of everyone who had once doubted her. Customers who had laughed at her earlier now stared in admiration, some shaking their heads in disbelief. Security guards, who had assumed they might need to guide her out, bowed their heads slightly in respect. Outside, the sunlight hit her face as she walked down the steps of the bank, still calm, still composed, but carrying with her the weight of her mother's legacy and the power of truth. The reporters quickly ran to catch up, asking questions, eager for a story that would inspire millions. But Amelia spoke only a few simple words. "I only wanted to do what was right. Everything else will follow." Her simplicity, humility, and quiet authority left a lasting impression on everyone present. Back inside the bank, Mr. Harrington leaned against the desk, staring at the empty counter where the girl had stood. He could still feel the shock, the respect, and the lesson she had imparted. For years, he had believed wealth, power, and intelligence alone were enough to control the world. But today, a 12-year-old girl had shown him that courage, honesty, and preparation could outweigh all of it. The bank employees slowly returned to their duties, but the energy of the morning lingered in the air. The whispers of awe, respect, and admiration could not be silenced. Even long after Amelia left, the story of the girl who had walked in to check her balance and ended up teaching a lesson to one of the richest men in the city would remain. And as she disappeared into the busy streets, the city itself seemed to recognize the quiet power she carried, a reminder that sometimes the smallest and simplest person could create the biggest impact, change lives, and remind the world that justice, courage, and truth were stronger than arrogance, wealth, or appearances. Amelia had come to a bank to check her balance. She had left as a symbol, a story that would be remembered, and a lesson that would never be forgotten. The VIP counter, the smirking tycoon, and the bank full of people would never look the same again. And the city, buzzing with rumors, whispers, and admiration, knew that it had witnessed something rare, extraordinary, and unforgettable.